What's happening, people? I hope you're all well. So, Joyce knocks out Joseph Parker in the 11th round. And this really was a nip and tuck fight. It was a fight where both fighters were competitive, both fighters were landing punches. The problem for Joseph Parker was his ring positioning, his low hands, and also his body language. Those were the problems in this fight. Now, obviously, the body language didn't really matter in the end because this didn't go to the scorecards. And the ring positioning was important, and the low hands was also important. While Joseph Parker, so basically, this is what was happening. The fight started off quite slow. Both fighters were trying to establish their jabs. Joyce on the front foot, Joseph Parker on the back foot, both voluntarily taking those positions in the ring. However, as the fight progressed, as you would predictively imagine, Joyce started to up the pace. The punches weren't of the best quality, but the punches were, accumulative. They were accumulative. And as a result of this, and Joyce's physical strength, Joseph Parker found himself running around the ring. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean literally running, but he looked floppy, he looked weak, at times. Not all the time, but at times looked floppy, he looked weak, and ultimately, I think that he just didn't have the physical strength or the punch power to really bother Joyce. He was having his successes in there. He landed a nice uppercut in the fight. He was landing, the overhand right was accurate, and he actually, I thought maybe buzzed Joyce a few times in the fight. Not noticeably, but a little bit got Joyce's attention. However, the consistency of Joyce was telling in this fight. The physical strength of Joyce was telling in this fight. And the fact that he was able to remain on the front foot for the majority of the fight told in this fight. Because as the fight wore on, you see Joseph Parker had a low guard. But because the low guard, because he was fresh, he was able to use his reflexes to get out of the way. He was able to use his reflexes to get out of the way and stay out of trouble for the most part. But as the fight wore on and Joyce was gradually upping the ante, Joseph Parker, although he was keeping up with Joyce, he was keeping up, he was competitive, but you could tell Joseph Parker, with his history of fading in fights and his low guard, he was eventually going to start to, get hurt. And there were times where it looked like Joyce had got Joseph Parker going, but then Joseph Parker would come back and it would evidently look like he hadn't got him going. But I thought that what the fight looked like was a competitive fight, that Joyce was winning. And even if he wasn't winning, he was going to get it on the scorecards because of Joseph Parker's ring positioning, constantly on the back foot, constantly flopping around the ring, despite being competitive and showing the hand speed and catching Joyce. It was almost like Joseph Parker had to put in a shift just to keep up with Joyce, even though Joyce was slower. So it got to the 11th round and Joyce landed a left hook and it caught Joseph Parker high on the head around the temple area. Joseph Parker went down and he tried to beat the count, couldn't beat the count, and Joyce actually gives Joseph Parker his first knockout defeat. And that's what it was, a competitive fight, a fight that Joyce was probably winning, and a fight where Joseph Parker showed his talent, but ultimately sometimes didn't look like he had the stomach for battle. It looked like sometimes he was on the way to, going down or being really hurt, and then he'd come back with something and having moments of success. And that just about sums up Joseph Parker's career, to be honest with you. Showing his ability, showing his talent, showing his quality, but sometimes not having the stomach, that extra bit that you need to become, you know, the champion. Even though he's already been champion, he didn't show what a true champion sometimes needs to show to win a fight. And that pretty much sums up Joseph Parker's career. And it's a shame. But when you hear things like, you know, he's not sparring Tyson Fury, and he doesn't want to spar Tyson Fury, and he wouldn't fight Tyson Fury, and he's almost like Tyson Fury's like, you know, he's happy for Tyson Fury to be the main guy, and he's there. You kind of have to expect that type of performance from a guy like that, because someone who really wants to be the best, he might be friends with someone, but that doesn't stop him from his aspirations to wanting to be the best. So you kind of have to expect that from, you know, these kind of performances from a guy that says things like he doesn't want to fight Tyson Fury, and he's not in, you know, he's apparently Andy says he doesn't spar Tyson Fury. You kind of have to expect these type of performances. So it's a shame. Talented guy, but maybe just not, you know, his personality is something that's, you know, gonna stop him from realizing his true, you know, his, you know, becoming a better fighter. I would say, you know, becoming a better fighter, because he has some real ingredients there. So that's pretty much that. The other thing I just want to touch on before I end the video, Joseph Parker's weight probably didn't assist him in this fight. I thought, you know, coming in at 255 pounds, I think it was for Joseph Parker, that maybe he was going to go for it. He didn't really go for it in that sense. So, you know, I don't know if he wasn't going to really go for it in the early rounds. Why did he put the extra weight on? Maybe it was to try and fight with Joe Joyce in the clinches. Evidently that didn't work. Joe Joyce was dominant in the clinches. So I don't know why the extra weight was there. Only Joseph Parker and his team maybe know that. But what I would say is that probably didn't help his stamina. And what you need against Joe Joyce is stamina. Most fighters are not going to have the physical strength against Joe Joyce. I mean, Joe Joyce is pushing Daniel Dubois, and Daniel Dubois is a strong guy. So ultimately, the extra weight, I don't really think it really did Joseph Parker any favours, because all it probably did was slow his feet down and make him more hittable, especially in the later rounds. Possibly even, you know, decreasing his hand speed, which wasn't at its usual speed. So Joe Joyce is going to move on now. I think he needs to challenge one of the champions. He's beaten Daniel Dubois, he's beaten Carlos Takam, and he's now beaten Joseph Parker. So he needs to progress forward. Joseph Parker, I mean, where does he go really? Because is he going to be that guy that sort of fills the cards? Because if he's not sparring Tyson Fury, doesn't want to spar Tyson Fury, puts in performances where you're kind of left thinking he could have done better with the talent that he has, you know, what's he going to do? Just be a card filler? You know, beat some guys who are kind of like C level, and then every time he steps up to B or A level, it's the same thing over and over again. I don't know what Joseph Parker needs. He needs to have a think about what he wants to do, because he's a talented guy, he's got some ingredients there, but I think sometimes some of the things that you hear about from him or other people around him isn't encouraging with regards to a fighter that wants to become champion and the best fighter in the division. So those are my thoughts. What did you make of the fight? And where did both fighters go from here? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, hit the notification bell so you get a notification when I make a new video, and I'll see you on the next video.